The good news is you can interrupt this week with laughter again. The best news is it's coming up here next. The most challenging dramatic series in the history of television, the complete plays of William Shakespeare, premiering with Julius Caesar Wednesday night, February 14th at 8 o'clock. At 11 tonight on Independent Focus, Warrington Hudlin, cited by the press as one of America's leading black independent filmmakers, explores the black storytelling tradition and blues legacy in Street Corner Stories. Street talk is seen as a form of blues expression and centers on a group of working-class black men and the stories they share at a corner store each morning before going to their jobs. Their daily conversations and stories blend the comic and tragic in an irreverent, unsentimental vision of their experience. That's Street Corner Stories, here tonight in 30 minutes. Night owls who like to swing should stay with us for the taped coverage of the Colgate Triple Crown Match Play Golf Championships here tonight at 12:30.
Funding for this series has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, this station and other public television stations.
We interrupt this week. Good evening. We interrupt a crowded week, the week ending Friday, February the 2nd. We interrupt, first of all, to say thank you to some 12,000 viewers who wrote in to ask that we be preserved. We knew that our audience included men and women of letters, but we never suspected how many. Letters came in from Maine through Des Moines, even from Cleveland, and from Florida through Texas to California. Of the 12,000 letters, I think the winning entry probably came from George Descant of Beverly Hills, who wired us that he's been watching the show for 5 years. George, we've only been on since last fall, so please send us some of whatever you're smoking. The letters came from everywhere where We Intereupt was seen. They were thoughtful and charming, and they did the trick for 5 weeks at least. To the 130 stations who are viewing for the first time, we hope that this will be the beginning of a wonderful new relationship. Since we missed, didn't we? Since we missed last month due to our temporary insolvency, here's a brief January update. It was a month when China had good news and bad news. The good news, they announced that they have the first safe, effective contraceptive pill for men. The bad news, you can't pick it up with chopsticks. It was a month when 300,000 tons of snow, clearly intended for Cleveland, fell on Chicago by mistake. It was a month when the Holocaust went on West German television and was watched by 40% of the German audience. The other 60% claimed that they had no idea what was going on in prime time. And besides that, they were only following orders. It was the month when former President Ford visited Jerusalem's Wailing Wall and wore a skull cap in case he backed into it. For those of you who haven't played the game before, the rules are very simple. 2 teams of experts answer questions on these and other important events in the week's news. This week, the teams are exactly those who played the last game before we were so rudely interrupted. Our home team, we welcome back Mr. Richard Reeves, the national editor of Esquire, currently retracing de Tocqueville's travels through the United States for a book. We thank Mr. de Tocqueville for leading him back to our fold. Barbara Hauer, television journalist, novelist, our woman about Washington, tan from a cruise during our hiatus, but happily back in dry dock now. Jeff Greenfield, writer for such diverse publications as The Lampoon, Playboy, and The New York Times, our resident teacher's pet. And our guest from that triumphant last team, Eugenia Zuckerman, virtuoso concert flautist, currently touring with the guitarist Carlos Bonnell. They will give a concert in New York next week. Linda Blanford, the journalist who regularly explains the American scene to the British in The Guardian and will help us clarify it for the natives tonight. Mary Alice Kellogg, senior editor of Parade magazine and author of the book Fast Track. So much for our team of killer queen bees. In order to add a sense of drama to the whole affair, I shall award points to teams who give correct answers or to teams who are evasive in an inventive, charming, or provocative manner. Those are all the rules, except to say that my decisions will be arbitrary, prejudiced, and final. Now, for the main business of the week, it was a week for spontaneity, when the White House reminded us that there would not be a single black person among 140 guests at the Chinese state banquet. And thinking quickly, they picked up the phone, called Andrew Young, and said, "Guess who's coming to dinner?" Now, our first question has a visual clue. It comes from that very story at the top of the news, and the visual clue is coming from the White House now.
On behalf of the people of my country, I welcome you, Mr. Prime Minister,
Who was that man? What was he trying to say? Kellogg.
That man was the President of the United States,
Yes.
James Earl Carter, and he was trying to welcome the Deputy Premier
Right.
of the People's Republic of China, and sort of flubbed the title.
No, that was splendid. For a full point, what color is the White House? one point to Miss Kellogg, and now it's not as easy as it seems, these Chinese names and titles. Here are some names in the news, some Chinese names. Let's see how many you can identify and how many I can pronounce. Some members of Mr. Deng's party. Wang Wa. Who's Wang Ah? Ms. Zuckerman.
I blew it. I thought I knew, but I didn't. I think he must be the Prime Minister.
He's not, Ms. Blandford, I think, no.
He's the foreign minister.
Were you going to say the same thing, Barbara?
No, I was going to say he was his official interpreter.
No, Wang Wa is the foreign minister, used, I think, to be ambassador or to the United Nations, I think. And who, in fact, is Fang Yi? You've got 1 point over there. Linda?
Is he the Minister of Communication, Science and Technology?
Deputy Prime Minister in charge of Science and Technology. A formidable answer, 1 point, certainly. Now, for some bonus points, some other figures you may have seen during the week. Zhao Zhongxiang. Barbara.
Is that the Deputy Prime Minister's official interpreter?
Keep going. No, he is in fact the Chinese television reporter beaming back a half-an-hour daily satellite report to China. How about Ms. Li Mei Phipps, or Phipps Ms. Li Mei, Linda?
Is that the now widow of the former Chief of State for China?
No, but
It
that
obviously
may
isn't.
come up later. Eugenia.
Was she not the interpreter who interpreted at the Kennedy Gala?
Yes, she was the American translator at the Kennedy Center Gala. One more point for getting the first woman ever to introduce the Harlem Globetrotters in Chinese. And a final one, Cholin.
That's his wife.
That's
Deng's wife.
Indeed, his
who
wife.
is attributed to have said, "All Americans look alike."
By the New York Post, but the New York Post were gracious enough to put in an apology later saying the remark was actually made by a member of her party,
Yes.
proving that to the New York Post all Chinese sound alike.
She looks like a 1930s lamp. She's the tiniest little lady you've ever seen.
It makes you wonder where Anime Wong is.
There was, here's another question on, we're still in the Chinese Washington circle. There was a sticky situation at a state luncheon. Little quick, Miss
I'm
Kellogg.
sorry. Sorry.
What was it? What's the answer?
The chopsticks were made in Taiwan.
That's exactly, and they bore... They bore an inscription which they couldn't read. It turned out the message was not death to the mainland bandits, but the Chinese equivalent of bon appetit. Perhaps we'll give this one just to the home side. I see the guests are ahead now, 2 points there, so they're ahead by 5-0. Let's let the home team concentrate on this one. Who said they're playing the same songs they played when I was here? Richard.
It must have been Nixon.
Yes, the unindicted co-celebrant Richard Nixon at the White House festivities. Any suggestions as to what songs they might have played? We did some research. The White House wouldn't tell us. The Marine Band did admit that they played It Ain't Necessarily So.
They usually play just that kind of music. Cole Porter, Gershwin.
It's a sin to tell a lie, we thought possibly. Any others? Ain't Misbehaving. He
All
might
by
have had.
myself.
All by myself, right.
There's
Okay.
a great little Richard song called "Keep a Knockin' But You Can't Come In," which they might have seen.
Still in China, but back in China, Wong Kwong-mei went to a New Year's party and made the news.
I'm sorry.
No, Linda. Why did she make the news?
Because she's the widow of the former head chief of state who was rehabilitated by their saying that his widow went to the party.
Right, and if Jeffrey can give me the name of the previous chief of state...
Yeah,
It's either Liu Shaoxi or Lin Piao.
Yeah,
Liu Shaoxi.
Liu Shaoxi's,
Liu
Liu Shaoxi's widow, and it's in fact 10 years since he died, which in the obituary trade is known as breaking the news gently. That's 2 to Miss Blandford, 2 to Mr. Greenfield. Question not entirely unrelated to those we've had already. Who was afraid that who might eat and run? Ms. Hauer.
Richard Nixon again?
No. I'll give you a quote from the White House. We decided to be gracious. Who was being gracious and who was the beneficiary? Jeff Greenfield?
There was apparently enormous debate about whether to invite Ted Kennedy to the White House, who might run, I take it that's the pun, eat and run.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
I thought it was a rather ingenious question. You get 2 points, don't knock it. The full Carter aides magnanimous statement ran, some folks were not overjoyed at the idea of inviting Kennedy, who has been kicking us in the head, but we decided to be gracious. Noblesse oblige. Now, to get away from the China situation, 2 more points for Jeff Greenfield. And who said this week why I could get her Barbara Streisand?
Oh.
Buzz from Ms. Blandford. Everybody knows this one, I think.
Sue Mengers,
Who is?
the agent, who was on UA-8 from Los Angeles to New York, which was hijacked by... Tell me how many points are involved.
You've got 1 so far.
From Cypress, California, who hijacked the plane in order to say how she felt about what was wrong with the Roman Catholic Church, and she wanted Charlton Heston, Jack Lemmon, or Wonder Woman Linda Carter to read a message that she left in a telephone booth on national primetime television.
Absolutely right.
Locked
2
up.
points.
Locked up in that first-class cabin with Sue Mengers, Joe Armstrong, Max Palevsky. The folks must have been praying that lady would press the button.
I think worse was that you realize that 119 passengers had to listen for 6 hours to Theodore Bickel singing with no possibility. 2 points over that side. It's been a bad week all round. A bad week for H.L. Mencken this week as NBC introduced its 2nd season, suggesting that it may be possible after all to go broke, underestimating the intelligence of the American people. Now, here's a quote in the news. Who said about what? I don't know what it is, but I want it built in West Virginia. Jeff.
Well, it sounds to me like it's Jennings Randolph or Robert Byrd.
It is.
Yeah, it's Robert Byrd.
And what was he saying it about?
Oh, he was saying it about some facility that the Carter administration wanted to build. But I don't have the least idea what.
I'm going to give you your 2 points, which will bring your side up to 8 and the guests to 11. It was said by Byrd about the State of the Union message phrase, a new foundation. Carter's apt description. Some have suggested that the new foundation goes with the cross my heart, I'll never tell you a lie, bra. Now for a bit of philosophy, and I'd love to get through the whole of this rather moving piece of prose before we get a buzz or a ring. Who delivered this short dithyramb on the affections this week? There is a young, frivolous love, the childlike love of a teddy bear. And as we go up the scale, the ultimate love between people, a deep regard for the other person, truthfulness, loyalty, fidelity, and a tremendous sense of selflessness. Who was the speaker? Ms. Kellogg, Mr. Greenfield?
It was Lee Marvin.
Yes.
Who also brought the metaphor to a new height by comparing love to a tank of gas and saying that his gauge read a quarter full from Michelle.
Right, Splendid. You get your 2 points. Jeff?
What occurs to me is that after this spate of suits, there will never be a rich man who says, my place or yours.
2 points to Greenfield too. Yes, it was the full phrase on the love scale he just described. He said he didn't feel the ultimate love for Miss Marvin, but he may have felt teddy bear love for her at some point. She is asking for a community property settlement of $1.8 million, which would, I suppose, make her the most expensive stuffed toy in the history of innocent play. We have another visual clue now, television being primarily a visual medium. Here's one of the great moments of the week, the moment when the Pope arrived on the land of Mexico. There will be a question at the end of this. He arrives, he comes down.
Who made his dress?
Now, that was the Pope arriving in Mexico, but what was illegal in that moment, or what was normally illegal in that moment? Ms. Zuckerman.
Is it illegal to put out full regalia for anyone who is of a religious order?
No.
In the
You're
country?
on the right track, but it's only worth 1 point. What we get from Richard or Barbara?
Against priests are not allowed to. I'm doing the same thing you did, Junior. Priests are not allowed to
Wear priestly
cohabit
robes in
with. That's right. They're not supposed to wear their habits or whatever they wear.
That's right.
Like I said.
I never should have.
Like I said, Richard.
It was such a mistake to touch that button.
It is also illegal in Mexico to give a French kiss to the soil of Mexico.
2 points to each side, I think, is equitable. Incidentally, the custom of kissing the ground was originated actually here in the United States by people who fly on small, unscheduled airlines. Pope John Paul's first meal in Mexico City was a gustatorial landmark for him. Why and what did he eat? Jeff Greenfield.
It was a Polish meal, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And anyone like to be
the menu, I'll let them, they know the menu.
And the menu, Linda or Eugenia?
Well, I know he had pig's feet, which is a Polish delicacy.
Yes.
And something in vinegar, I don't know.
He had
what.
pig's knuckles and beetroot and mushroom soup. He's looking forward now to his spring visit to Poland, where there's this little place in Krakow which makes great enchiladas. That's 2 points to each side, and we move on to another look at the Pope, this time not in Mexico, but in the Dominican Republic. In fact, he's riding through the streets of the Dominican Republic in a huge white vehicle, and for fun points, I'd like you to suggest what sort of name might be given to this Pope-mobile.
The Pope, I thought you were going to ask why he was there, and to get a divorce from Mia Farrow.
A point for irrelevance, but any suggestions about, or irreverence too, for that matter, any suggestions about what it might be called?
A good humor popesicle?
Very good. Well worth 1 point.
And they both use those little bells.
We'd wondered about an encyclical. We thought might have been right.
Good.
Think a Chrysler?
Vicar of Chrysler is all right, and also maybe a papal bull. You could.
Yes, or a holy roller maybe. Let
us push along then.
What odds are you giving that we'll have 240 stations next week?
Recently a manuscript, literary question here, recently a manuscript of a novel is reputed to have been rejected by 14 top publishers because sometimes with comments such as these, the content didn't inspire enthusiasm, gives the impression of sketchiness. What was unusual about this, Jeff Greenfield?
It was Jerzy Kosinski's novel Steps, which an enterprising journalist typed up and sent to publishers and literary agents who charged him money to read it and said, this isn't very good.
Yes, that's absolutely right. So it is reported.
The other interesting thing about that book is that it had won the National Book Award.
In 1969. Yes, you'll get 2 points each. It was Jerzy Kosinski's novel Steps. According to these reports, neither the Random House who originally published it liked it very much, nor did Candida Donadia, the agent who said the novel lacked that all-important dramatic tension. Julian Bach said it jumped about so much it didn't hold interest, and Gloria Saffir charged $25 reading fee and rejected it. 2 points to each side. Now here's one with an audio clue. Where can't you get anything you want this week? And here's the music.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Miss Kellogg, I think, was there already.
Alice Brock, who is the Alice of Alice Restaurant fame, who is now on her 3rd restaurant, which is in Avaloq in the Berkshires, announced that she just can't make ends meet anymore and she can't run the restaurant anymore and that she is closing it down.
She also has a rotten septic tank.
Right, and she had to pay $45,000 to replace her septic tank.
That's exactly the answer, and it was a 60s landmark, and hence that famous Talking Blues.
Do I get a septic tank point?
Oh, you get a septic. Barbara gets, yes.
I had to go into
Barbara,
the tank.
1 point.
I want a point.
1 point with ST. Let's move on to another big story in the news. Who switched from an OPEC nation to an OPIC nation this week? OPEC to OPIC. Jeff.
I was going to say Iran because they're having to import oil.
Exactly. Don't have second thoughts.
Oh, good.
The fuel will be used to drive cars to downtown Tehran so that they can be overturned. Staying in Iran, who came out with a hands-off policy this week?
That was Khomeini. I was
correct.
Khomeini said that he hopes that God, who he apparently is in direct communication with, will cut the hands off all foreigners who do not leave
Absolutely
Iran.
correct. 2 points. It was his first diplomatic statement. I suppose we call his first political stump speech.
Or the Muslim way of giving the finger.
Yes. No more Mr. Nice Guy. 2 points. This week, a favorite Muslim chant, along with God, Quran, Khomeini, might be "Let us spray." Why so? Barbara.
Is that Pat Boone's book, Pray to Win?
No, let us spray, and we're still in Iraq.
I have to go now.
Straight to the arms of Pat Boone, I should think. Eugenia.
Would that be the mace that they are spraying on crowds in Tehran?
No, in fact, the followers of the Ayatollah are busy spraying out all the street signs which say Fawzia Square or Soraya Street, that sort of thing. No points to nobody for that. We move on to a riddle. What has 42 legs but fell for the 36th time this week? Linda.
The Italian government.
The Italian Republican government.
The
Yes,
war.
exactly. 2 points. Yes, since 1948, they've gone down 36 times. The score is 25 to the guests, 22 to the home side, and here's a visual clue seen in last week's press for you to identify. Graphics coming up on your screen now. They do not. There they are. They do not represent the traffic flow in Tehran, or Alfred Kahn's blood pressure, or Billy Carter walking a straight line. What are they? Jeff Greenfield, I think, knows.
Highly dubious. I was going to say it's the seismic tremors of the earthquake that hit New Jersey.
Nope. Eugenia, do you know?
I was going to say the same thing, but maybe it's somebody's cardiac chart.
It's nearer
I
to...
doubt that.
It's Linda.
Is it anything to do with amniocentesis?
No.
Oh.
They are in fact, no points to nobody, they are in fact the charts in the play-by-play action in Super Bowl 13.
Ned, I know that you're British, but I think they're sideways.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Jeffrey. We thought it would be too easy for you. Because
held up that way, I won the bet.
Now for another visual clue, another piece of film, in fact, moving film dealing with another national sporting event. Maybe harder for you, Jeffrey, because this is neither American nor British. There are two bids. There's one from Greenfield here.
This is the opening of the first Plato's Retreat for Animals.
20 points, Eugenia.
Isn't that the charros or the horse thing that was put on for the Pope?
Nope.
It must be Afghanistan. What I was wondering was, why was Geraldo Rivera in there?
It is, in fact, no points to anybody. 24 to the home, 25 to the guests. It was, in fact, one of the few athletic contests not covered by ABC's Wide World of Sport. It was Turkey's annual camel wrestling championship. Camel lovers, please write to Turkey, not to me. One final sports question. Despite the odds, who saw tails 110 straight times? Barbara.
Steve Cawthon, after 110 losses, won a race at Santa Anita?
Yes, exactly. He's had a winless streak of 110. Of late, he's seen more behinds than there are vice presidents of CBS. Talking of sports, it was a week when Roone Arledge, the head of ABC Sports, asked if he planned to use Coach Woody Hayes on the air next fall, replied yes as a target for the American sportsman. A week when we learned that a Bulgarian cosmonaut will go on the next Russian mission for extensive research. The object is rumored to be repairing an ox cart in space. It was a week for creative thinking when a two-headed goat was born in Santa Rosa, California, and was named Hedy Lamarr. Another visual clue this time. This week, a college president, Mr. Dale W. Lick, kissed the date of his institution's homecoming queen. Why, or as some might say, why not? Linda?
Because the Georgia College homecoming queen was a man.
Yes. Do you know the name? You've got your 2 points.
Patrick something, and he did it to show how absurd it was.
There he is, Patrick Fetter, coming up on your screens now. He struck a blow for equal rights by beating out 4 women for the honor of homecoming queen, just for the heck of it. At the coronation, the President-elect chose to kiss Fetter's date, who we have on our screen, I think, coming now, Janet Stevenson. You can't lick 'em, join 'em. You get your 2 points anyway. It was revealed to Americans this week that the shopping list of a prominent person included sugar lumps containing tiny hidden condoms, bags of laxative tea. Yeah, you're going to get it in a moment, aren't you? But let's have the full shopping list. They're always fascinating. Powder that encourages the breaking of wind, a cushion called a grab-it, which when you sit on it, a hand shoots out between your legs, plus sneezing powder, itching powder, and a whoopee cushion. Mrs. Kellogg, who was the buyer?
Well, the buyer is Princess Anne's husband, who thought this would liven things up at Windsor.
And his name
Mark.
is for Mark Phillips.
Mark Phillips.
For 2 points, right, splendid. Another quotation here. What campaigner said, "I'm trying to sell you something I've tried to avoid"?
It must be Khomeini West, Jerry Brown.
No, Khomeini South was the area. Linda?
Edward Kennedy trying to sell capital punishment.
No.
No.
That's good, though. I like it.
It was in fact Ian Smith of Rhodesia on his last-minute campaign trail for yes votes in his plan for limited majority rule. The term limited majority rule was coined by the same man who invented the word jumbo shrimp. Now for our Russian section, what was unconfirmed in Moscow but confirmed on Long Island?
A 13-year-old boy.
Exactly. Do you know his name?
Begin.
Yes.
Begun.
Would you like to tell us the story, in fact?
He couldn't be, I believe the expression is bar mitzvahed, Ned, in
Yes,
your
it is. You're
English way.
absolutely right.
He was a Jewish boy in Moscow who couldn't be confirmed, and so it was done by proxy on Long Island.
Yes, somebody called Todd Rothschild stood in for him there.
Not bad.
And it was, I think, the first proxy bar mitzvah. Circumcision by proxy presents more of a problem. Second Russian, yes, Jeffrey?
They believe they smuggled in a fountain pen.
Second Russian question. It flew from New York to Moscow in 9.5 hours. We'll soon be riding on the subway to Zuckerman.
Was that the kidney that was transplanted?
Yes, it was a kidney transplant flown from New York to Moscow and transplanted into Svetlana R., a Moscow subway worker.
Not in the subway, though, I trust.
No. Actually, it's fascinating. You get your 2 points. Last year, a Russian kidney was transplanted into an American patient who suffered no after effects except an occasional overpowering urge to emigrate to Israel. Can you complete this supplication heard in an American place of worship this week? O Lord, you once heard the cry of Jerusalem, now hear the cry of blank. Buzz, Mr. Reeves.
Cleveland.
Cleveland it was, in fact, in the circumstances.
I haven't the vaguest idea, but why not
Cleveland, of course. Right. 4 points. 4 points for sheer gall and the mellifluous name of Cleveland. Oh Lord, you once heard the cry of Jerusalem, now hear the cry of Cleveland was an invocation at a Cleveland prayer breakfast. Praying for Dennis Kucinich, the hymn He's Got the Whole World in His Hands was also sung on the assumption that it includes Cleveland. 4 points to Richard Reeves. Last question. At the moment it's a toss-up. She'll either use her skills to turn the windmills of troubled minds or she'll go to the dogs. Who?
Patricia Hearst.
Absolutely right. Would you like to
Well, she
fill
says
in?
now that she is out of jail just 5 years after her kidnapping, with a pardon, that she's going to spend her time raising dogs or doing something with the women's rights.
Yes. She said
equal
she would
rights
like
women.
to work with mind control victims. Her fiancé, Bernard Shaw, said that she would pursue a career in dog training. So interestingly, she'll be the first person to deprogram a St. Bernard. 2 points to the home side. The guests are the winners by 1 point, 33 to 32. To the winning ladies, a Lee Marvin T-shirt. To the other, so the home side, an imaginative work in oil painting showing Rosalind Carter at a political gathering with Jack the Ripper. Next week, our home side, Barbara will be away, but Jeff Greenfield and Richard Reeves will be joined by Peter Stone. The visitors will be Frank Mankiewicz, Jessica Savage, and David Steinberg. To any of you who played the game at home and think you did better than our sides here, write in quickly, and the first one to prove that they've done that will be sent a rear view poster of the Ayatollah. Good night.
Funding for this series has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, this station and other public television stations.
Not only the stories, but the tellers themselves are fascinating on Street Corner Stories here in 30 seconds. Everyone knows the place to be is at Studio 55, particularly when We Intereupt This Week is taped before a live studio audience every Friday afternoon. If you're live enough, send a stamped, self-addressed envelope to this address and the date of the Friday you want to interrupt your week with laughter. This is 13, where it's a world of difference. And now on Independent Focus, Warrington Hudlin, cited by the press as one of America's leading black independent filmmakers, explores the black storytelling tradition and blues legacy in Street Corner Stories. Street talk is seen here as a form of blues expression. The film centers on a group of working-class black men who gather each morning at a store corner to share stories before going to their jobs. These daily conversations and stories blend the comic and tragic in an irreverent, unsentimental vision of their experiences. And now, let's watch Street Corner Stories on Independent Focus.